Bueno, yo creo que la vida acá en la Amazonía, a pesar de las dificultades que tenemos nosotros, los campesinos, porque la vida es dura de nosotros, ¿no? Es dura, pero a pesar de eso nosotros vivimos felices porque la naturaleza nos da muchas cosas buenas.
Well, Aquicuana is really a very interesting natural park, but it's quite small, no? It's only like 50,000 hectares, but within these 50,000 hectares, you've got a huge variety, no? Huge diversity. I'm talking about over 550 different bird species that we've registered so far, and each month we register new species. They still keep coming new species, which is really something that amazes me.
My first impressions of the Amazon, it is like adapting at the beginning, like everything is different. Like to start with, you got the heat, the humidity. I got off the airplane and I was like, whoa, so hot. But then you get to settle in and yeah, then you discover the nature.
Ay, no, de tantos años que nosotros vivimos en este pedazo de acá, de este pedazo de la Amazonía, a pesar de tantos años que vivimos, hay todavía, hay muchos animales todavía, ¿no? Entonces eso quiere decir que nosotros también, como aprovechamos, pero también cuidamos, ¿no? No las exterminamos, en otras palabras.
Sobre el medio ambiente, opino que nosotros cuidamos el medio ambiente porque es bonito vivir con el aire puro que respiramos, no también contaminar los lagos y que todo sea limpio, porque un mundo sucio también trae enfermedades y es bueno cuidar el medio ambiente.
I think the first thing that's not well understood internationally about Bolivia, the idea is, which I had as well when I lived still in the Netherlands, like Bolivia is a country of high Andes and Aymara indigenous people, which is part of Bolivia, an important part of Bolivia, but we also have huge extents of highlands, including the Amazon, no? And this Amazon is currently under severe threats.
Vivimos en un tiempo muy difícil. Nuestra selva está siendo amenazada por el juego, por los taladores, por los saqueadores, y es por ello que la actividad, la presencia de instituciones como Pacha fortalecen a ese esfuerzo de la gente y también de las autoridades para poder protegerla en primer lugar. Gracias al apoyo de Pacha y a muchas personas y ciudadanos del mundo, se ha podido concretar la estación biológica en la reserva de Aquicuana, en la Amazonía boliviana. Eso ha significado que se implemente, por ejemplo, un centro donde puedan llegar investigadores, donde puedan llegar científicos, donde puedan llegar voluntarios para apoyar en la inventariación de los recursos naturales del área protegida.
Well, it's been a long process. Things don't move quickly here. And so with the support of Pacha, essentially, we've been chipping away at it. And yeah, we're finally at a place, and you can see it's finished. I mean, we have everything we need to really invite more researchers, high quality and researchers to come here and support them in what they need to do so that we can basically understand this reserve better.
One thing about the biodiversity in this area is that we almost don't have any information. No? We've done studies, like statistically speaking, we should have about 8,000 tree species in this region, in the Bolivian Amazon, and we haven't registered botanically half of it. So setting up a research station that can offer conditions for international researchers to be in the field, but have also conditions with access to internet, just a good bed to sleep in, decent food. So that really will make a huge difference. If you look at biodiversity hotspots in the Amazon, like where are the sites where you have highest biodiversity, those are the sites where there are research stations and where there are researchers, not that much because of the ecosystem. Aquicuana is already a hotspot, a recognized hotspot for birding, but it will become like a hotspot for biodiversity in general. I really believe that.
You know, basically now that we have, you know, a fully operational research station, it's about getting the word out, you know, and that's what we're trying to do now, is really raise awareness that we have this space, that the space is available for people, that we're here to support them, you know, and then it's an exchange, you know, where they come, we support them in the research they're doing, but then they're leaving something behind, and that something is information, and that information is extremely valuable for us.
And the research station more in general, it's like the first time in 8 years there is electricity here and Wi-Fi.
And through that entire experience, that entire time, we've never had electricity. You know, we've only been able to generate electricity through a generator. And you can imagine, you talked about challenges that we face, you know, trying to build in the jungle environment without electricity. You know, that is a major challenge, and it has been a major challenge for us. You know, now all of a sudden, you know, we've got it. You know, it's taken, like I mentioned, it's taken 8.5 years to get to this point, and it's something we've been working for. So it's something, you know, that we're super grateful for the support for, because it's going to allow us to really be able to delve into the work in much more depth. You know, before we did something, we'd research something, we don't have internet, you know. So now, okay, what are we going to do? So, you know, you're taking notes, but you got to go back into town if you really actually want to research, you know, what this plant is, you want to learn about this animal, you want to do whatever it is. So now that we've been able to get electricity, we also have brought in the Starlink. So we have internet. We have better internet than you get in River Alta. So, I mean, it's a game changer.
The research station is like a great spot to be. Like, you got the internet. If you have internet access, a desk, you can do all the research you want. Like, I am just like the first volunteer that can like really access like the research station with Wi-Fi, electricity. So I think like in the upcoming years, like if we can get more volunteers, more researchers, the place can go growing and growing and growing.
Necesitamos el apoyo de la comunidad internacional, necesitamos el apoyo de los voluntarios para poder ayudar a que el bosque se regenere, a que el bosque se salve, a que el bosque siga viviendo.
Yeah, so we have, you know, someone here from Belgium, Tijl, who's doing work on plant identification. For me, it's personally interesting. I've always had a passion for plants, and to be able to kind of work alongside Tijl, alongside a couple of, you know, the family that we call the caretakers that are here on site. So they have a lot of local knowledge, and it's basically just tapping into the local knowledge of our family, as well as some of the other, you know, neighboring communities and neighboring families.
And so my job is to identify like the uses of plants, whether they are medicinal or not. I go out with a local informant in the nature, and it's just like a Bolivian guy that is telling me like this plant has this purpose for you know, the stomach, hair, skin, construction.
And you know, they identify different plants, and it's like, okay, this plant, what's the local name? What's its local use? And so Tijl is basically taking down that information. And then he goes back to the research station, is able to hop onto the internet.
And then I'm making a report with all the plants identified, with all of their uses. We got people here like occupied with biology, and then they can like work onto that document.
And then spin that data, look at the data that the local informants have given him, and then compare that to the data you find in something like Google and some of the other resources that we have, some of the books that we have available in our library. And so he's combining those two resources basically to be able to put forward a book about the local plant life, medicinal plants of the Aquicuana Reserve.
the whole medicinal aspects of the forest plants mostly. There's a huge potential which we haven't really checked into yet. We were just starting to document what are the medicinal uses of these plants for the local people, what's known about those plants internationally, and getting to know these forests and all their potential.
La iniciativa, el interés que está demostrando Pacha para ayudar a proteger el bosque tiene que ver mucho con la educación y la formación de la gente local. Y en ese sentido, el poder contar con un experto, un técnico, un guía en todo lo que significa la conservación, la capacitación de estos jóvenes en todo lo que es la protección del medio ambiente va a ser bienvenida y va a ser significativo el aporte, porque son la gente local la que día a día convive con la naturaleza, experimenta las necesidades del bosque y puede dar respuestas favorables, inmediatas para su conservación.
Bueno, yo creo que sería muy importante, ¿no? Yo he ido a mirar la infraestructura, es muy bonita, muy interesante. Yo creo que sería muy importante que sería un canal de, ¿qué le puedo decir? De tanta, coordinar mediante ese espacio que han construido ahí para de repente apoyarnos para también protegernos, el tema acá tanto de la ecología, o sea, de todo lo que concierne a la naturaleza, ¿no? Sería muy importante también que nos apoyaran en eso, ¿no? Yo creo que es muy interesante, muy importante que haya eso acá en la comunidad, ¿no?
In this area of the world, there's lots of challenges. Starting to get the heavy rains. You know, the rains are coming now, so the roads get washed out. So that makes it tough to get supplies. It makes it tough to bring in, you know, building supplies or anything that we want to accomplish. I mean, it's a long process, you know, and we want to do it right. And so, you know, because we don't have tons of funding and because, you know, we're learning as we go, it's going to take some time, you know, and it has taken some time. But the reality is that we've been able to accomplish something really, really impressive, you know, and we're only able to do that because of the support that we receive from Pacha. And so, you know, we're really at the moment now where we're really able to, you know, make big, major changes.
Ahora contamos, gracias a ese apoyo, con energía solar, contamos con oficinas, con equipos que van a posibilitar las investigaciones en el área protegida y de esa manera generar planes y proyectos que ayuden a la conservación no solo del medio ambiente, sino principalmente a la población local y a todo lo que significa los recursos de la flora y de la fauna en el lago San José, en la reserva de Aquicuana.
Yo creo que si hay la voluntad también, yo creo que se puede lograr, ¿no? Se puede. Nosotros nos sentiríamos muy felices, ¿no? Con eso porque todo ayuda, todo apoyo que sea en bien de la humanidad, pues es muy interesante, ¿no?
I'd say in the last year in the Aquicuana Reserve, one major issue we've had obviously is the same issue that all the Amazon is facing, is with the fires. You know, the reserve was relatively unaffected up until recently, and then we had unfortunately an outbreak of fires in different areas. I don't know if it's gotten a ton of international press, but here in this area of the world, it's just been, you know, a daily battle.
The forest fires have been a big problem this year, no? We've had forest fires before, like in 2005, 2010, that have been dry years, so there were huge forest fires. This year has been a lot worse. Like it was a very dry year, and in total we estimate more than 10 million hectares that burned down in the Bolivian lowlands, no? Including the Amazon, the Chiquitana, and the Chaco region. So it's enormous, no? It's like 3 times the amount of a European country, no?
El tema del incendio ha afectado a muchas familias. El tema que nos ha afectado mucho ha sido en el aire, que el aire se ha contaminado mucho. Hubo días que no podíamos respirar bien. El tema de la vista también nos hacía doler mucho. Y el tema que ha perjudicado es también el tema de los animales que han muerto demasiado, que se ha quemado nuestra Amazonía.
No, la verdad, yo creo que este ha sido el peor año, que se ha quemado bastante. Es algo que nos pesa a todos, dijo, porque hartísimo monte hemos perdido, nos ha afectado a todo, más el humo. Hay hartísimas personas que le ha afectado en sus plantaciones, ya sea copa azul, chocolate, todo eso, más los animales, más el monte, todo se ha quemado y es una pena, la verdad, sobre el incendio.
It was a nasty scene, and some of the direct implications, just in terms of living in this space, we couldn't see the sun for 6 weeks. It was rough. It was rough on, you could feel it in your lungs, you could feel it in your eyes, and then you can only imagine the impact that's having on the environment, on the local animal population.
Hundreds of millions of trees, tens or not hundreds of millions of animals that burned alive. Really an ecological disaster, the biggest we've had in Bolivia since history began.
Por el motivo de los incendios, que en esta época se ha visto que se ha necesitado mucha ayuda de otros países. ¿Por qué? Porque ya no podíamos con los incendios, ya estaba quemando todo y necesitaríamos su ayuda por eso y sobre los estudios.
Lamentablemente, la Amazonía boliviana ha sido escenario de incendios forestales que han afectado grandemente a la vida silvestre y principalmente a la población, porque además de consumir el bosque, también ha tenido sus efectos sobre la salud de la gente. Un problema muy serio que tenemos que afrontarlo como bolivianos y con el apoyo y la concurrencia de la cooperación internacional.
I've been in this area for 9 years, never seen anything like that. I mean, we had flights canceled, basically grounded for 2 months, and I think in those 9 years, it's never happened one time. The fear that I have is that this could be turned into something that continues, that could be an annual event. And so obviously, the government and nonprofits and local populations, we need to step up and figure out a solution.
Well, you have to understand they often happen in very isolated communities, poor peasant, indigenous areas, even protected areas where nobody lives. So it's very difficult to do something against that. Like you have to set up the local people to teach them how to firefight.
And I wish I had the answer. There's just a lot of, I think, factors that go into it. And there needs to be a collective effort, and that's an effort that starts here on the ground, with the local populations, but that also involves an international, effort. We're going to have to really take action.
To protect the Amazon is really like a very big fight. No, it's really under a heavy threat from climate change, from this agricultural pressure, from mining, from a lot of development plans that don't take into account the importance of the Amazon for biodiversity, for ecosystem functioning, for climate. And it's a really uneven fight most of the time. Like you've got these poor peasant of indigenous families, municipalities that hardly manage any budget, that try to secure that the mining doesn't destroy their own river. At the moment, it's really, I'm quite pessimistic because the models show like the whole of the Amazon could collapse in less than 5 or 10 years if we only cut down like 10% more of the Amazon. The whole ecosystem will just collapse. There won't be enough water for the trees to survive.
I'm an optimist, so I think I try and bring that perspective to most things, because unfortunately, there's a lot of reality that you see on a day-to-day basis, which has enough to turn you into a pessimist here. You see it every day. You see the logging that goes on. You see these fires. You see the conflict, and you see the need, the communities that are living day to day. And so, the jungle is this big resource for them, and it should be.
En segundo lugar, a un mediano y largo plazo, esperamos que hayan muchas iniciativas como CAI Pacha que nos ayuden en diferentes escenarios, en diferentes temas para poder proteger el bosque.
Sí, si le podría decir algo, que si pudieran ayudar aquí a mi país que es Bolivia, a mi comunidad que es Valle, si tienen esa oportunidad de apoyar, que lo hagan para nuestra Amazonía, que hoy en Bolivia está muy mal, hasta se ha quemado mucho. El tema del medio ambiente también es algo que es muy sonado aquí, ¿no? Que el medio ambiente lo estamos deteriorando mucho, que si pudieran apoyarnos en esa parte también, de ayudarnos a algo así como pasarnos talleres de cómo cuidar nuestro medio ambiente, porque también no mucha gente sabe cómo cuidarlo.
My hopes for the future of the Amazon, I will just hope that the community will be able to find a way in which they can deal with life more easily. If there is a fire, that people have a system in place, they can deal with that fire, to deal with electricity, maybe get access to internet that is developing, so that life is just more easy for them.
Quisiera decirle que sigamos cuidando el medio ambiente, que para tener un futuro bien, estable, y que acaben con la destrucción del medio ambiente, que ya no existan esos de tumbar los árboles, de dañar a los animalitos, y que en vez de hacer eso mejor lo cuidemos para que no exista todo eso y tener un mundo más sano y bonito.
But unfortunately, it goes beyond the community. You're talking about there's international pressures now on this space. And so, when you look at that reality, it's enough to turn an optimist into a pessimist. It is a scary reality. But nonetheless, you do see, people that are really taking interest, local and international actors, people like CAI Pacha, who've identified a need, and they're being proactive and trying to help us, do what we can to take steps to improve this space, to protect this space. I say space, I mean this vast space of which is the Amazon, not just our reserve here.
The positive thing is that we know we can also reverse these processes. We can restore degraded lands, degraded ecosystems. But we have to change the economical model. At the moment, people think to obtain development, you have to fight the nature. I want them to understand you have to collaborate with nature. You can't develop without nature because nature will kill you.
The clock is ticking. It's never going to be the same. But the question is, have we reached that tipping point where there's no turning back? And I don't think we have yet. So there's still options, there's still time, but we need to act.
De aquí a 20, 30 años, la situación se va a tornar mucho más difícil si no hay una intervención, si no hay una ayuda eficaz para poder preparar a la gente y para poder generar las condiciones de protección y de conservación. Necesitamos ese apoyo y CAI Pacha ha tomado esa iniciativa y esperamos que ese esfuerzo que está haciendo sea permanente y que en los próximos años podemos paliar el impacto negativo que en este momento vive nuestra Amazonia.